The issue isn't that smart women can't see red flags. The issue is that they can explain them away. Let's talk about it. Being smart doesn't automatically make you discerning. In fact, sometimes intelligence makes it easier to explain away what you clearly see. Today, we're talking about why smart women ignore red flags. And not just talking about that, we're talking about how to stop sacrificing clarity for chemistry. Welcome to Live, Love, and Marry Wiser. I am your host, Lorraine Edwards. We have seen so many relationships go over the edge that we have committed our voices to building better fences at the cliff, so we need fewer ambulances in the valley. And with me today, as always, to bring some fence building wisdom is my co-host, Onita Hall. Hey, Onita, how are you?
Hey y'all, hey Lorraine, how are you
I'm
doing?
doing great, thank you. Doing great.
Awesome.
Just so you all know, if you want to catch up on my dating life with Lowdown with the updates, you will need to stay until the end. We are happy to have you here. And today, as we begin, it's gonna be in two parts. Part one, we're going to talk about why smart women ignore flags. We have 6 good reasons for you. And we hope that you get value from that. Number one is intelligence can be used to rationalize. So, highly intelligent women, as we would consider ourselves on this
Mhm.
podcast, we can see nuance, and we can see that. Well, we're going to get to that potential word later, but we can see the nuances. We can understand trauma. We can argue both sides of an issue, and we're empathetic and we believe in growth. So typically, we might say, instead of this is a problem, some smart women might say, oh, he just needs support. He's been hurt before. You can see that, you can feel that, you're empathetic to that. And, this is a popular one. Nobody's perfect. Uh, and this is not untrue. Nobody is perfect. Um, and I haven't really heard this one a lot, but I can see it being said. At least he's honest about it. Like he tells you his issue.
Mhm.
And so it seems like if someone can articulate their stuff, that means something. And they
Mhm.
do say knowing is half the battle. However, if you just know and can talk about, but you don't actually make any changes, then we kind of have a problem. And
Mhm.
so often, what smart women do, especially because a lot of times smart women are in successful positions, they're doing, in other areas of their life, they're pretty successful, they're productive, they're, might be high income earners. They can reframe all of these things. So it's not like they didn't see. It's not like they're
Mhm.
ignorant or they're just kind of blind or they're like, nah, la, 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 la. They're just like reframing them into something helped or changed or, accounted for in the great scam. Well, it is a scam, but in the great scheme, in the great scheme of this person in this relationship. So there are all of these good things over here, and these things over here are just, we can understand because they're not perfect, or everybody needs someone, and all that. So they reframe them so that it means something different. Um,
That's good.
our second one,
That was good.
I think Onita's going to take this one. What you
And
got here?
I'm so glad that you said too about understanding the trauma because people tend to sometimes get attached. The more he's sharing his stuff, you start to get
Mm-hmm.
attachment. And so number two is when chemistry overrides clarity. Because he's able to explain it. You dated men in the past that they were, they kept everything tight, close to the chest, and they didn't share. They didn't get vulnerable.
Mm,
This guy's sharing everything. So
mm-hmm.
now you're now attached to there's the attachment there, and you start. This gives us chemistry because I've now attached, and so neurochemistry is very powerful. That, and
Mm,
and like you said, highly intelligent women. We're very smart and logical, and so wow, this guy is doing something that no other man did before. Even my daddy don't talk about stuff and what he went out all of
mm,
it. And so
right,
people get caught
right.
in this anxiety attachment loop at times for all this stress or cortisol, or for the fact that he's sharing all of his, which one
Mm-hmm.
is a red flag too, because brother, do you have any boundaries? Like, I'm not your therapist,
Mm-hmm.
but because he's learned the technique of these women eat it all up. They want me to even more. They get attachment, or just the excitement of something new. And so the dopamine is your lead-in thing. And this is, again, this is the neurochemistry of it. So it's not just
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, I'm feeling him. It's, man,
You get
things
a
look
rush.
and appear to be so great, so a rush, and it's like, oh, the butterflies, and I see this, the hearts come out, figuratively speaking, when he walks in the room, or when he calls
Mm-hmm.
me or texts me. And so those things make you ignore some of the red flags, and then the bonding aspect of it that we get through oxytocin, when sometimes you rush into physical stuff too fast. And so
Mm-hmm.
now chemistry, oh, we kissed on the first date, and it was the most beautiful kiss ever. And so now I'm not even asking all the questions I should be asking, because
Mm-hmm.
he told me all this stuff. This is great. And he never did like that before. But also now we've kissed to seal the deal. Unfortunately, some people go way further than that early on. And so foundationally, you've already, stepped out of alignment. But now the body is doing what the body was made to do. It was made to attach
Mm-hmm.
and bond.
That's right.
Once we begin sharing bodily fluid,
That's right.
you now share bodily fluids. And so now we ignore all of these things. And then, so when there's chemistry, the brain then shifts into reward mode. So you're rewarding, and I feel even better now. The more we do this, the better I feel. And so now you're ignoring all these red flags. And
Mm-hmm.
so your brain doesn't prioritize logic when it's in an attachment mode, especially now when we begin to bond like this. So it
Mm-hmm.
makes it biological, but not just a moral weakness. And so ignoring those red flags, and not, or in taking things out of step, not building this foundation first, can cause you to ignore a lot of red
Mm-hmm.
flags and stop asking the question.
Yeah, because that neurochemistry is important, and God created us to experience that in relationship. But if it's the wrong relationship, and if it overrides, it's not supposed to be the overriding factor. It's
Mm-hmm.
just supposed to be a contributor, because you are supposed to bond, you are supposed to attach to the right person.
Yeah.
Those if you have an attachment issue or disorder, you don't experience that like other people. Like, you can be all the way sexual with somebody
Mm-hmm.
and then walk away like nothing, if you have like a real disorder. But for people who don't, who just normal, healthy
Mm-hmm.
in this area, the neurochemistry is created to attach you to that person.
Yeah.
Of course, Adam and Eve only had one person to be attached to, but they were attached so much so that he didn't disattach when she was like sinning.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually took him, he should have been more attached to God. So that's a whole nother episode. But um, yeah, no, thank you. I mean, I just think that's important that people recognize that just because you have those feelings, don't it should not cloud your judgment. You shouldn't allow
Mm-hmm.
it to cloud your judgment. We actually have something to help you with that. We're going to talk about later. Now, we already talked about a whole episode about this, but this is still relevant. So,
Yes.
we're going to show you. I'll link that up here in the above us, the potential episode. But potential is addictive, and so because those smart women we can see all of the great things that he could
Mhm.
become. Because we've done it at work and we've changed systems and we're just like, oh, I mean, this is an issue for me, not in dating, because I really only had, um honestly, one person that I actually dated for potential. And I didn't date him for potential. There was some stuff that, that was good. Obviously, that's usually the case. But this relationship, it got me because I locked in
Mhm.
because the potential we could become together. And so this is me right here I'm talking about. There was so much that I could see that if the person just made one step, and that step was really a spiritual, like, connection with God,
Mhm.
whew, we could just have been like, power couple. But they hadn't made that step. And they kept not making that step, and it was over and over. And we
Mhm.
just, I didn't hold on for years, but still, this is, so, but potential doesn't matter if there's no performance. um
Yes.
as I think you said in the last time we talked about this, the actual potential episode is, you cannot marry potential, you marry patterns.
Yeah.
And so I know, I saw, quickly, thankfully, but not probably quickly enough, because I wasn't all of the dopamine and I wasn't like having sex with him or anything like that. But all of the dopamine and all of those neurochemicals had been building for 2 years before we actually started dating. So
Mhm.
it wasn't even just like an you know, this momentary excitement. And so there was a lot to detach from, even without the sexual component to it.
Yeah.
We only kissed like one time ever. So in our whole time of dating. And so even that, but there's an emotional thing that happens, like you were saying, the hearts, you know, all the emojis go off when you walk up or whatever. So
Uh-huh.
this is like really important because potential can be addictive if you're the person who wants to renovate or change, or you see all of these things. And for me, when I go into a church or when I go into a business and I work there for 3 days, I can see the things that need to change to make it more efficient.
Yeah.
So that's great at your job, it's not great in your relationships. So
Yes. Yes. And I one thing I only wanted to add to that was, you, like you pointed out, you said that one thing was spiritual, and we, being that we are faith based, that's the foundation.
mhm.
Like, that's the foundation, and we're not saying the person's not a good person, but you cannot go into this, especially seriously, thinking we're going to ignore the fact that, hey, you go to church regularly, and you on Wednesday night prayer meeting, and you got your community like ours, praying sisters.
Mhm.
But then he only says he's spiritual. I'm spiritual. I grew up in the church,
Right.
but he doesn't go regularly at all and have any godly brothers around him that can help encourage him when things
Mhm.
get rough in y'all relationship or in your marriage, even later, if you decide to go that point, that they're going to help push him back to you, to God, and to you,
Yes.
where he's a CME. He's a Christmas, Mother's Day, Easter,
Yeah, he wasn't even to that.
and that's it. But, you know and so you can't proceed forward if you are a Christian and you're saying, one, I don't want to be unequally yoked, but I also want to walk in alignment with what God's called me to be and who He wants me to be with. You can't ignore that. That's a
Mhm.
that's a huge thing, because even when you start talking about we having a kid, if we getting a kid blessed or not, are we raising them up in the church? The Bible says to
Yeah.
raise the kids, in the fear and admonition of the Lord. Does he or she agree with that, or are they like, no, we're just gonna let them choose later in life?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
these are going to become major obstacles in a relationship. And then definitely if you go into marriage, if this is not something that you guys are aligned with now. Whoever you pick for your partner is, you know, basically it's for now and it's for the life to come. And so you cannot just look at the potential
Mm-hmm.
of them one day getting close to doing and thinking you can be the one that leads them there. Hey,
Yeah.
Bible study is real, but also they have to want to do it, want it for themselves, not
And
just
they
because
have
they're
to.
also having all the dopamine. And I just want to do anything to make her happen. It will fade
Mm,
away. It
mm-hmm.
will fade if it's not done from his true heart or her true heart, because they want to walk with God on their own. And so the next one, again, with high
Next
achieving
one.
women often believe there's ego and identity. Again,
Mm,
because we're bosses at work, we're bosses at work, and so we think we can manage everything. And
mm-hmm.
so I can make this work. I've done harder things. I've dated,
Mm-hmm.
I've dated somebody that made more money than this guy, so I can make this work. I dated someone who was a neuroscientist, and he's just a trash truck driver. Which, hey, I ain't knocking that. That brother got a good job,
Right.
benefits.
Right.
Look, if you out there and you're in Florida, come see my girl. Um, but just saying, I can make this work. Well, I'm not like other women. He ain't never had a baddie like me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm naturally built this way. I don't need the BBL. This is how I'm naturally built, so I could just make this work. Or met someone like me. I'm better than the last chicks he had. But this
Mm-hmm.
ego and this confidence that's misplaced when it comes to the
Yeah.
relational dynamics,
Yeah.
and it's actually arrogance. And you're really thinking that you can change that brother. Newsflash: we can't change anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I know we think we
Mm-hmm.
can, but we can't. But so don't ignore the red flags that you are seeing, like they're blaring in front of you. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
train coming and you hear this horn, but you're thinking, because I've done it before, or I can change him, or I can do this, then I can make it work. Ignore these red flags just to prove to yourself that I can do this, because
Mm-hmm.
you've always had to prove, you've always had to show up
Yeah.
strong and do everything and
Right.
wear your superwoman cape, but not when it comes to your relationship.
Yeah.
Don't ignore the red flags, but ego and identity can definitely get in the way.
Absolutely. No, that's some good stuff right there. Because there is that. I mean, I definitely have heard, people say, "Oh, he's never met a woman like me." And so now there's kind of this almost competitive spirit that's against the women that he has dated in the past. Like they couldn't change him, but
Uh-huh.
I can change him because I, like you said, I'm a baddie, I'm a boss, I'm all of these
Mm-hmm.
things. And you may not even consciously communicate that, but that's kind of what's going on inside of you. Because a lot of this is just psychological stuff that we haven't really dealt with. That's why we're talking about it. So you may
Mm-hmm.
not be overtly like, oh, okay. Now, some people who say, yeah, he ain't never met nobody like me, obviously they think, oh, I have the power to get him to do whatever or make these changes or become
Mm-hmm.
whoever I think that he can become. And but like you said, this that's all good at your house, at even at church or even at work, but trying to change somebody like that doesn't really work in relationships. And the reality is, it doesn't matter how good you are. If somebody doesn't want to change, they're not going to. And you and I both know plenty of good women who you know their husbands ain't changing. Yeah, like, they just
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And no matter whatever encouragement, pressure, attitude, prayer, people, even with prayer works when people want it to work. Not the people praying
Yes.
all the time, but the people who are being prayed for.
Yeah.
Because I can pray till Jesus comes. And if somebody does not want to give their heart to God, then they just not, and God
Mm-hmm.
is gracious enough to give us that free will. So yeah, I love that. All right. Number
Mhm.
5, loneliness distorts standards. Now we had an
Mm.
episode on loneliness too, so we talked about loneliness. I don't know if we had a whole episode.
Yeah,
Oh, not last week, wasn't that? We talked about, are you ready for a relationship, or are you just lonely?
yeah.
We talked about this, but it distorts our standards. Um, Even when you are super accomplished, doesn't matter. Especially for women, you feel like the clock is ticking. Everybody keeps telling you the clock
Hmm.
is, and there's that. God can do
Hmm.
anything, but in a normal course of life, there's a certain period of time when you can have children, and so there is a time pressure. Um, there's comparison pressure because all my friends are married, all my friends have
Yes.
children, all my friends are going to DC and hanging out with their husband and having good times, and all,
Hmm.
going on trips and all this stuff with their partners, and you're just kind of like, when is my turn? And so if that person comes along when you might be kind of at a low point, more vulnerable, because is for many single women, not all, but for many single women, you're not lonely all the time. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
times of vulnerability when it might just be more acute. And so if someone, and that's certainly happened in my life, where someone has crossed your path that you would not really, in a normal situation, you probably wouldn't date this person. You certainly not, I always had a standard for marriage that was a little bit high, that was a lot higher than my standard for dating. Because I was just, in a place of just dating. Um,
Hmm.
so, but if you're in a lonely time and then all your friends are either married or getting married, they're having children, they have their homes, that can really set you up for lowering your standards around who you allow into your life. And so, um, that's in a really important, it's really important for what I've done, Onita, is actually communicate my loneliness to, like, my friends. Really sit with yourself and identify. And I know I've told you all, I just was telling y'all a couple of this week about, like, traveling back from Atlanta. Were you
Hmm.
on the call when I talked about that?
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
Traveling back from Atlanta, feeling like I'm tired of traveling alone and all this stuff or whatever. And so it was an acute sense of yes, because I was talking about worshiping, and kind of turning my feelings around. But if
Hmm.
I was the kind of person who wasn't able to acknowledge my feelings, like recognize what I was feeling,
Yeah.
it, and that has been pretty self-reflective, but sometimes you don't really know what's going on in there and you don't sit with it.
Yeah.
And a man came along, looked right, that wanted, that was interested. It's so easy. It's so easy to fall into that trap, and Satan does it consistently.
Yeah.
So now you start thinking, oh, is that really, that's not so bad. That's not,
Hmm.
all of these lists of good things, but that's minor in compare, and it's really not minor. So
Yeah. It's not that FOMO would get you caught up with a
yeah.
mofo.
Y'all, did y'all hear? Oh, that
I'm
was
sorry, y'all.
that's definitely quotable. I might have to put that clip. I might have to cut that clip. Where's that? 24 seconds, 24 minutes. I think I'm gonna have to use that clip though.
Sorry, y'all. That's what happens. You grew up in the 80s and 90s. Okay, anything just come out. Oh, but yeah, but yeah, that's it's so true, Lo. And I just want to reiterate that point you made about saying it because God heals what we reveal. Devil wins when we let that fester and we isolate. And
Mhm.
so, in that isolation too, you go ahead and start lowering your standards. But verbalizing it, God, I feel lonely. He wants to be there.
Yeah.
He can take that. And saying to your friends, I feel lonely in that space, and find a community. Because to your point, it may not even be that I'm missing out on a relationship, but I'm just missing out on companionship. Just friends,
Mhm.
somebody I can travel with, somebody I can hang out with. And some of the
Mhm.
needs I need right now can be fulfilled in the people I already know.
Right.
I don't need to go ahead and just because I'm feeling that,
Mhm.
but definitely verbalize it because a lot of times people are suffering in silence and you end up in a situation that, with somebody and you end up in a situation ship, period, the
Yeah.
end. And you don't
Mhm.
want to end up in that. Our next point, spiritualizing. And this
Mm.
in faith spaces, man, this happens a lot, a lot. Well, guys, God is working on him. We are to come as we are. God is working on him, and you're ignoring. You're ignoring. You're like, sis, he's on his fifth baby mama.
Mhm.
When is the work gonna start? You know, stop over spiritualizing this, or well, First Corinthians 13 it tells us love is patient, love is kind, and all these
Mhm.
things, and that is true. But is that love the way that God has called him to be? And if he does he even and want that type of relationship, or
Mhm.
taking it on a lot, and I see this a lot, and I've even done this myself. I just need to pray more. If I pray more, then it'll happen. And God is not a genie.
Right.
We
Right.
don't get three wishes. He's not just going to go because he doesn't force any of want to do. We have the freedom of choice.
Mhm.
If you believe that,
Yes.
that's the enemy talking. God gives us freedom of choice. Your prayers ain't
Mhm.
gonna change this man. Now, what it can
Mhm.
do when you're interceding on the behalf of others is reveal to you what you need to do, and the
Mhm.
Holy Spirit will speak to you, and you just can't stop ignoring it.
Right.
And then this, when people have their own issues, and we all have our issues, but if we're coming from a place to where we show up with our trauma more of how we operate versus our healedness, then it's, oh, I don't want to be judgmental because I know
Mhm.
I got my stuff too.
Mhm. Mhm.
I know I have my issues too. Trying to, yeah, ignore the discernment that God has given you. And women have this intuition already, but a godly woman also has the spirit of discernment. And so then it gets confused
Mm.
with if I'm
Yeah.
discerning this, then I'm ignoring it. So then I'm being unloving. And that's not the case. That's not the case.
Yeah.
Can become self betrayal. To thy own
Yes.
self, to thy own self be true. And so pray for that, brother. First of all, pray in advance. And if you need some tips on that, Lorraine also has an awesome book where we, as women, that's how this community started. The woman who
Mhm.
believes in fighting on her knees. Pray in advance, sis, for this man who God brings you, so that you're not over spiritualizing this thing and
Mhm.
saying, oh, I mean, and I just, he's a good man. They can see the kindness of his heart and ignoring all the things because, oh, what God called us to forgive. And I get, but when there's major flags and the Holy Spirit's telling you run, then don't betray yourself, sis. Don't betray yourself.
Don't betray yourself. No, that's really good. And man, there was you said a lot of good stuff in there. But I think I just posted a reel. Um, I think it was yesterday. Well, I didn't post it. Some people posted it for me, so that's why I don't know when it was. But yesterday, um, I was talking about um, how I started to feel like if I said no to whatever people in church wanted me to do,
Mm-hmm.
I was like unchristian or unloving or whatever. And
Yep.
so that kind of fits what you were just saying, that we get that stuff confused, and boundaries are important. And if you love your neighbor as yourself, you got to love yourself first.
Yes.
You got to love
Yes.
yourself first. And so we're going to transition now to part 2. Part 2 is how to stop ignoring red flags. How to stop ignoring red flags. And so, number one is define red flags clearly. And this is really important because people have different perspectives of red flags. And I think if you don't define it first, then you can kind of have some confusion, because some people say red flags are things that you can talk about, and then the person be like, oh, I'm going to change that.
Hmm.
That's typically not what I think of as red flags. And I think of those things as yellow flags. Like if
Yes.
it's something that I can talk to you about and you're just like, oh, I didn't, and then but so red flags are not, and then we'll talk about what they are. Red flags are not personality differences. It's not introversion. Like that's not a red flag.
Yeah.
Or minor immaturity. Sometimes people can be jokey a little bit too much. That's not my personal preference. So so that's a different thing, because
Yeah.
you should have your list and your preferences, and you can know, is that something, I have a friend that we kind of, I'm not even sure what to call that, but and I he's a very jokey person, and he's actually very funny. But for me to be married to someone like that, it would drive me crazy, because I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't need everything to be a joke. Like, can we just like I like for real? I don't. Sometimes you could just not say anything. That would be cool. So that would be, in my determination, for me, that would be something that's like a minor immaturity. It's not anything bad. It's just a preference. But
Hmm.
what red flags are, and this is kind of the direction that we're coming from, they are patterns that indicate a lack of integrity. I'm not going to have a conversation with you and suddenly you're going to become integrous. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that you can't become integrous. I'm saying one conversation is not going to change that. And I'm not going to stick around while you have a lack of integrity within our relationship or outside of our relationship. It's not just about me, it's how you interact with everybody. A lack of accountability, a lack of emotional regulation, like you flying off the handle all the time, or even
Hmm.
even even positive, like if you're so happy and so over the top all the time, or you swing this way and that way, like that is just unsettling,
Hmm.
and it really indicates some, probably some more significant issues that you probably want to address. um it's interesting. And this, I'm just going to indicate that this might be a trigger. This is a trigger warning for those who might have it had um, self harm or suicide in their family, or whatever. Um, when you see someone like Robin Williams, who, when he was on, he was so on.
Hmm.
Not just even in his like movies. Of course, you have to, it's a movie. You got to act the way the movie tells you to act. But when you even like in when you see him in interviews, he was so like all, he was just so up, so up, so up, so up. And then one day he just ends his life. A lot of times we really have to pay attention to people who are that much all the time, because a lot
Hmm.
of times it's a cover for whatever is really going on in here. And so emotional regulation for me, and maybe you can um, chime in your thoughts as well. Emotional regulation is not just being able to control your emotions in a given situation. Obviously, that is a major part of it. but it's also being able to communicate and address your emotions in an appropriate way.
Yes.
So just because I can like, you've never seen me like, cuss anybody out or go off or anybody, it doesn't mean that I am still emotionally regulated when I'm in my house by myself and being able to navigate and communicate to you these feelings that I might have.
Yeah.
We have to really look at that. If somebody is, either they're fine all the time or they're angry all the time, and it's like nothing can make, so those are just some of my thoughts. I didn't know if you had any
No, no, that
thoughts on.
was good. I think that was good. And too, I'm watching how conflict, because that still goes back to resolution when there is a disagreement. Whether, I mean, you can be disagreeing on the restaurant choice, or he's annoying. Sometimes ladies, we what do you want? He getting upset already. Because his familiar emotion is to grab anger. He can be
Mm-hmm.
jokey jokey, but now the other emotion is the anger, and so if that's his go to all the time, don't ignore that flag, because it's only going to amplify the more comfortable you get. We can't
Yeah.
regulate and even just say communicate. I think one of our episodes we talked about, and I think even one of we had this when some of the men were on, and one of the husbands said, a value he had or a boundary for him was time, and his spouse always is like he's ready to leave, and it's 30 minutes. Deanna talked about this too. He had to learn his being ready to go was right now. Hers is she still need another 30 minutes. But if that upsets you as the man, you have to communicate that and be able to regulate your emotions and say, listen, time is very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I value time. And so if you know it's going to take you another 30 minutes, I don't mind waiting. I just need you to tell me it's going to take another 30
Mm-hmm.
minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I can plan to do something else. And so I think that's a big one. I think that's one of the ones, honestly, that get ignored a lot as people, they're so happy and they rush into areas that tends to be a big problem
Yeah.
because it was not discussed or caught ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Tip number two.
Well, let me just add this one. I don't want to skip this
Sure.
one because I
Sure.
wanted to just lack of alignment in values.
Yeah, that's major.
Major, major, major. You need to know what your values are first of all, and
Mm-hmm.
there are tests online that you can actually, because a lot of times we think we know what our values are, but when we just had Ebony lead out a a training in our community, which I'm going to tell. We've mentioned the community a lot. I'm gonna bring that up shortly and
Yeah.
actually give you all more details. But she did a training in our community about identifying your values. And when you first start, there's like, I don't know, 50 things on the list, and you're trying to pick, just 15. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
think everything's my value. I believe in all of these things. There was probably was like, oh no, not really that much of a value for me. But then she's like, narrow it down to 10. And you're like struggling trying to do that. And then she's like, those are your real core values. And so now you've taken
Mm-hmm.
out of these things, trying to find 5 values, and then recognizing that uh these are values for me, but maybe my life and my
Right.
all of my choices are not really in alignment with what I'm saying of my core values. So I'm internally in conflict,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm going to get with someone who also doesn't know their values. We don't know if those align. They don't have to be the same, but they do have to align. So I just wanted to say
Yes.
that before we went to number two.
Oh no, that was good. And then in conflict, he wondered, why do I keep attracting this type of person?
Right.
Because that's their
Because you
conflict
don't
there.
know what you are.
Right. You don't know what you are. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Number two, we want you to, learn to separate empathy from evaluation. We can empathize. You can understand someone's trauma. And we gave this example earlier on where he's telling you all this stuff. You can understand their trauma without volunteering to be their rehab center. Like,
Yeah.
You don't need to be the rehabilitation center. And I would caution you to be telling him at the very beginning. My grandmother,
Yeah.
two of the advice things she gave me was, don't tell him everything. Because we were dating, she was like, because one, they will use it later to bring it back up, throw it in your face, or use it in just it not in the right way. So you may think I'm telling him all this stuff, he's going to empathize. No, some people are listening for what they need to watch out for.
Hmm.
But you can understand someone's trauma without volunteering via their rehabilitation center. You can still empathize. We're not saying be mean and not empathize. Empathize answers kind of look like, why is he like this? And what answer is this safe and healthy
Hmm.
for me? Because you don't need to. We're not. Don't neglect yourself in this. Don't have compassion for yourself because you're trying to empathize and lower your
Hmm.
self worth and lower your self esteem,
Hmm.
all because you're trying to
Yeah.
empathize. You need to say, hey, those are two different questions. Is this somebody that if I continue in this path, if how they are today was how they're going to be the rest of their lives, do I want to stay in this? Is this
Yes. Yeah.
for me? Is this going to send me to early grave? Again, I'm not trying to hate on the brother, but if he got 5 different baby mamas, when y'all marry, y'all income is his income. So now the
Right.
child support increases. Is this safe
Hmm.
and healthy for me?
Hmm.
Okay, that's a real thing. I know people that went through this exact thing. And so have some sympathy, but don't have the sympathy without evaluation.
Last year we talked about the Adventist home. We went through that, a lot of that book, not the whole thing, but we went through a lot of that book. And you all should go back and check out those episodes because they're really good. Um,
Yes.
but in that book, she says, and this is not a quote. This is just I'm just translating what she said because I don't remember the quote exactly. But she said basically, when you're dating, you should look at everything.
Yes.
But when you're married, you need to close your eyes to a lot of stuff because now you're committed. Love covers a multitude, but a lot of us do the opposite. Like when
Mhm.
we're dating, we think our love covers all of these things, but then when we get married and
Mm.
now they're coming out even more and you have to live with it every day for the rest of your life. You're like, "Oh, no, why are you this or why are you no, I was that before." And if that was a problem, then that should have been communicated or that should have been you should have, dipped. But you didn't. And now it's not safe or healthy for you, but you've already made the jump and the commitment and now you stuck like Chuck trying to navigate that. And people who believe in divorce, we're not a podcast or a group of people that believe in divorce. We understand that divorce happens and
Mhm.
we do there's some times we believe in divorce, but we're not just kind of like, oh, it's irreconcilable differences. We don't believe in that. But even if you have a biblical reason for divorce, divorce is painful.
Mhm.
Divorce is hard. Divorce, even from a legal perspective, is not easy, let alone from an emotional perspective and a spiritual perspective and a relational perspective. There's nothing that divorce does not impact. So
Mhm.
when we get into these situations that are not right, and then we try to get out, it's not that easy versus, oh, block. I'm dating, so block. What like this is the thing that troubles me is that we are not asking these questions like you said, is this safe and healthy for me? You
Yeah.
can have all the sympathy in the world for that person. You can pray for that person. You can intercede for that person. You can take those person's resources, but you don't have to be the resource for that person.
Come on. Send them
Who
to send them to the source.
send them to the source. Number 3, stop auditioning for his potential. Would I choose him? You just said this. Would I choose him exactly as he is today? If he never changes, would I still feel secure here? Not
Mm,
just would I still be here, would I still feel secure? Do you feel secure now?
right.
You don't. So why would that change if he doesn't live up to his potential? And he can't live up to his potential for you. Now, I'm not saying that women can't be encouragement and all of that stuff. You can encourage
Yeah.
somebody without be sleeping with them. You can encourage somebody without marrying them for sure.
Mm,
So stop auditioning to be his wife based on his potential. Like, I'd be a great wife for the man he is going to become or he could become. No, you wouldn't, because you don't even know what that is, because
yeah.
he hasn't actually demonstrated it. He's just talked about it. He's just
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah.
it.
Mm,
So if the answer is no, then you are clear. If I wouldn't want to live with this forever, then I don't want to live with it now. The
period. Period. Clarity is kindness. Get that clarity.
clarity is kindness.
Bring in external perspectives. Like isolation fuels rationalization, or should I say delusionalization? Because sometimes you get little delulu, you get a
Yeah.
little delulu. As my daughter say, denial is not just a river in Egypt. You know, bring in your people. Where are your friends at? Where your friends
Hmm.
and your family who gonna do you doing a 180 view, or not even 180, you're just looking dead on, and they're gonna do that 180 and they're gonna 360
Yep.
around this person.
They're going 360. Absolutely. Thank you for adopting my
They're gonna see stuff.
my policy.
Yes, you
I
gotta
say it so much. Everybody should be saying it.
be
You
saying
can
it and
only see
doing it.
everybody else can see 360, and that's
Saying
what.
it and doing it. And let me tell you, I was listening to a pastor preach one day, and he was hot and mad because he is like, they come to him after they are married.
Yeah.
The pastor said, we didn't even see y'all dating. Who is this guy?
Right.
You didn't bring him to church none. You didn't bring him around. You didn't let nobody scoop him out. Now you come here. I is married now. I is married now. And then you, few months in, maybe weeks sometimes, crawling, crying to the pastor. I think we need counseling. And it's like, what? Where you at? What you should have
Yeah,
brought him
you
ahead of
do. You
time.
needed it like three months ago. That's when you really
Right.
needed
That's
it.
that's when you needed it. And so we could have helped you recognize some of these flags and trusted men. Have you some ain't gotta be a lot. Maybe it's even one person that you trust and you know they're gonna give you good godly counsel. They're not going to sugarcoat it for you.
Hmm.
Love means telling you the truth, and so they're gonna tell you the truth. Have those people involved earlier on. If you feel like it's getting serious, you need to have them involved. Slow down. What are you rushing?
Hmm.
What's the rush? You got for the rest of
Hmm.
your lives. Slow down the pace so
Yeah.
that you can get time to notice more red flags and have more questions. Again, dating is for data gathering.
Yes. Yes.
Ask more questions, women. We then they said women have to get 25,000 words in a day and men only get like 7,000 words in. Let's flop that. You start asking them questions and let him answer and get more
Hmm.
stuff out because it's easier for us to do it than it is them. But when relationships move too fast, when they move too fast, red flags become blurs. We want to prevent that. We want to stop you. We want to keep you on the side of the fence, baby. We want you down at the ambulance in the valley.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Okay?
Yes. So this is the time when I'm going to share about our Praying Sisters community. We've talked about it a lot, but one of the things that when you have an external perspective, you have community.
Mhm.
And the reality is sometimes that's not always just your friends. Sometimes your friends are like, yeah, girl, he fine, he whatever, he got money, he got this, and they just see the external things because they want you, and not in a bad way, but they want you to be happy. They want you to get married if that's what you want. And so they're like, rah, rah. You don't need no rah, rah. You need a nah, nah. That's what you need. And in our community, it's the spiritual and personal development community. We help you kind of bridge the gap between your overwhelm and your expectations and reality, and still walk in your purpose. And
Yes.
so people are writing books. Like we have like one book that just came out this week, a couple of weeks ago. We have another person who's working on a book that's her first draft is finished. We have people like moving in the direction, starting communities themselves. Where
Yes.
women are moving in the direction that God has called them to move, because they came in feeling overwhelmed, not enough,
Stuck.
like I could never do that, stuck, all of that. And because we're a community of praying sisters, prayer is first. Praying is actually an acronym for our pillars. I'll share that in a second. People are moving in the direction, people including me are moving in the direction that they want to go in their life and
Yes. New
accomplish.
businesses.
Yes, businesses and everything, because they have community and support and people who can see a 360 perspective, people who can brainstorm with them about their goals and their visions, people who celebrate. Like we're not one of those women's communities where there's like jealousy and all that kind of stuff. There are, and I'm not saying we're not human. I'm saying that we that's not the energy that we even bring to this.
Yeah.
We make sure that we're vetting who comes into the community too. If you got that jealous energy, then we're not really about that, because we want everybody to go as high and as far as they could possibly go based on what God wants for them. But if you just scan that QR code, you can just have a call with me, or Anita's one of the leaders of the community. Then we will share more details about it. How do you join? What's the cost? All of that. And but we really want you to be a part of that. And by the way, this is the first time I'm announcing this. Even like our community members don't know this. We actually have a free version of our community where it's limited, obviously, but and that code isn't here. So I can put that code up in the description, where you can put your prayer request and someone from the community will pray for your request like once a week. And you can just go in the community and see that. When we have our prayer, we call people by name. So even if we do a video, recording our prayer for you, then we will do that. But that's not the link to this. This is just the link. This discovery call, the strategy session, is free to, just to have a conversation with us. But the reality is there's nobody in this world that doesn't need a community that supports them
That's
and
right.
and understands them and cheers for them. And many women don't have that. They have friends, same thing. We have a structure that we follow every month so that you are growing and learning, you're getting new information, you're studying the word. And so we would love for you to join us. So just scan that code and just join us for a strategy session. Even when you leave that, even if you choose not to join our community, you will leave that with some strategies of getting unstuck and moving forward in your
Yes.
own life goals. So
Yes, you
just
will.
break that, just to communicate that to you all. Number 5, as we start to wrap up here, watch consistency, not words. One of the things that is very important and attractive to me is someone that I can have great conversations with about just a wide variety of things. And I really like men that can teach me things, not just kind of surface conversation, which those are fine too. Because you don't need to be deep all the time. So that gets on my nerves too. But like, okay, we don't need to be deep all the time. We can just talk about HGTV sometimes. Somebody who can teach me, but not in a way that's kind of like, you know, demoralizing or make you feel like less than, but to have
Yes.
someone who's willing to learn from you, like those kind of conversations that are give and take. And so conversation is sexually attractive to women
Mhm.
particularly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you have that. That's why if you take time, I mean, cleaning is sexually attractive to women
Hello, hygiene.
too. So if you come home and you cook whatever, cleaning the house, but that's important. That of course is important too. Take care of yourself. But but if you like every day, if you commit minutes, an hour with your wife, just talking, not about the children, not about the bills, not about just getting to know her, you will have little problem in the bedroom getting
Okay.
her there. You will
Okay.
have issues getting her in the bedroom. Now, of course, sometimes you're on your period and that kind of stuff, but bro, she'll be jumping you. Let me give you some
Okay.
game right now. She will be jumping you. So sometimes men, I'm going off on a tangent, but sometimes men are just like, well, she won't, just talk to her. Like literally
Talk
talk
to me,
to
talk to
her
me, baby.
and wash them dishes that you use. But just
Okay.
talk to her. So deep conversations, smart women fall for that because you're just like, this is what I want. I'm gonna tell you a story. You're gonna crack up about this, Onita. This is I don't know why the story came to my head this week, but it fits this because I like smart men, you know. And
Hmm.
when I was working at a certain job in a certain city at a certain time, I had an employee who was physically attractive. I was not attracted to him. He was just an attractive, what you would typically consider an attractive person. He
Hmm.
had a girlfriend and children and whatever. I wasn't interested in him at all. But over time, he had like some challenges on the job, and I was his boss. And I covered, in a sense, I like helped him. I tried to cheat. I took on some of his responsibilities. And nothing was working. So eventually we had to let him go. Okay.
Hmm.
So I found out that he sued the company because he said that I essentially I was mad because he wasn't like sexually, or he wasn't attracted to me or something like that. Like I wanted him, and like when I found out he had a girlfriend, then I would like kind of change my attitude toward him. Like I literally found that out the day he started working. So I'm just like,
Boy,
okay.
bye.
So I when I found this out, so this was happening behind the scenes after he left, and they didn't tell me for a long time
Hmm.
because they were fighting this. And so finally the HR director comes to me and she tells me, and I busted out laughing, Onita. And I said to her, I said, I've dated tall men, I've dated short men, I've dated fine men, I've dated men that, are, a little chunky. I've
Yes.
dated light skinned men, dark skinned men. I've even dated white men. But what I've never dated is a stupid man. And
Don't start.
girl, I was like, if I ever ain't never been attracted to a stupid man. So that's just a funny story. I thought you were like, but like deep conversations, vision casting. He ain't casting no visions for nobody. Spiritual language, emotional vulnerability. These are all things that you're like, ooh, that's so attractive.
Yeah,
But consistency over time reveals character.
that's
He
right.
could do all of that smart stuff. He could do all of that stuff that just draws you in, and you're just like, ooh, wow. But consistency over time, that reveals character. So
Hmm.
words don't be get caught up in their words. Words are nice, but don't fall in love with the words until you see the behaviors that are connected to those words. And
Yes.
you're just like, oh, okay, he's legit. Now I love him. I so love him.
Yeah, watch
All
his
right.
patterns. Watch his patterns, sisters. Watch his patterns. Number 6, reframe red flags as information, not failure. You're
Mm-hmm.
not, seeing a red flag doesn't mean, and they'll say this too, you're not too
Mm-hmm.
picky. Don't
You're
ignore that
not.
red flag. You're gathering that information
And
to
you get to
Lorraine's
be
point.
number one if you want to be,
Right. If you
but
are somebody, like I said again, we're dealing with a lot of high functioning women here that you're able to communicate. You're able to you're talking about your day and everything. And if all the time with one word answers, even in his text, you just sent a paragraph, he done gave you a thumbs up or a yeah, baby, that's a red flag information. He ain't got enough time in his day to respond, to check on you, to,
Mhm,
or while you're together to even hear about your day. That's information. You're not too picky. You're not cynical. Try
mhm.
not to. He keep talking about he in the studio. That's his dreams and aspirations, but he ain't had gas money to get over here. Take that information for what it's worth.
Take
He
it in.
always got to be doing stuff for somebody else time to make time for you because he's out there
Mhm,
trying to be, Superman for everybody. So he has no boundaries. He can't even say no to other people. Take that information on. You're not being cynical, too cynical,
mhm,
or being fearful of saying, and we addressed it earlier, that, you'll be alone forever. Okay.
mhm.
You won't. One, well, that's not true because God will not withhold any good thing from you.
Yeah.
If that's what He intends for you, it will happen. Maybe no, no, maybe in your waiting season, ask God what needs to be uprooted out of you. Help Him to refine you. Help Him to love you first and get your life right with Him. Like be so connected and in love with God, in love with you. Will have to seek God in order to get your heart. And so,
Mhm,
you know, understanding information wise that you won't be alone forever. And don't just ignore the red flags because of that. But it just means that you're observing the data. You're dating, you're asking the questions, and you're making an analysis. Here's the hypothesis, the guy for me. And now let's go through the science experiment. And then, as you're gathering this data, here it is. Let's
uh-huh,
make it simple and plain. And so, mature dating is data collection. If you're just trying to be out there playing around, getting caught up in a bunch of situations,
mhm,
being left on and ghosted, then that's not ready. You're not ready for mature dating. But mature
mhm,
dating is going out there and consciously recognizing I'm doing data collection. I need to ensure that whoever I'm going to align myself with, I'm not just doing it because I just want to ignore. No, it's not a
mhm.
failure. It is actual data collection, and you want to do that.
Absolutely. So this was a great, we had things of why, 6 points of why we do it, and then 6 points of how to stop doing it. Let's focus on the how to stop part.
Mhm.
Like it's great to identify the problem, but let's focus on the solution. And just to help you out a little bit more, I have this book, Five Red Flag Men You Must Never Date. And you can scan that QR code and get that little ebook, and it won't take you long to read, but you will see some stuff. You're just like, whoa, I never even thought about that. Whoa, I never thought about that. And it will help you not just with these five, but other things that you can like be attentive to and just like, oh, because what's interesting about this book is these are things that people would say are green flags, but then I kind of dig underneath them. I excavate some of the realities of what these turn into, and you're like, oh wow. So get this book, scan the code right there, and you can get that book for yourself or for your best friend or sister or the person in your life who refuses. You're gonna share this episode with them too, but who refuses to just choose right, choose right, choose right, choose right. All right, as we close, I said I was going to catch you up on my dating life. Okay, here's the dating life. There isn't one yet, but I've been outside a lot. I've been outside a
Yes.
lot, and I've been looking cute, and I've
Yeah.
been I'm ready. I'm working on the thing I told you all, my finances. Those are going to turn around this year, and I'll be ready to go. So if you got any brothers or uncles or sons, depending on how old you are,
Yeah,
holla
man.
at a, holla at a sister. DM me. We'll see where we go from there. I'm open not to every one, but I'm open to things that I may not think that, oh, like I may not have chosen that for myself. You see that a lot on the design shows. They're just like, I wouldn't have chosen that color for myself, but it looks really, really good. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that's true in dating too. Sometimes oh, let me say this. This just came into my mind, but sometimes the red flags are always associated with our preferred person type.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't look at other types who are just like loving and healthy and would be great for us. We're just like, oh, that's not my type. Okay, but your type has traditionally been problematic. So so maybe you need to look at a different type.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
might need to look at a different type. So
Because your picker is off.
your picker is broken. Yo, your picker is broken. We hope that this show is helping you fix your picker. Fix your
Yes.
picker. So, discernment is not negativity. Boundaries are not bitterness. And walking away from misalignment is not failure. It's maturity. Proverbs 2:11 says discretion will preserve you, understanding will keep you. And those
Mm.
words preserve and keep mean to protect you from harm.
Amen.
That's what we're talking about here, right? You
Yes.
wanna, don't be falling off the cliff in all of these relationships. So you don't need another rescue plan if you follow Proverbs 2:11.
Yes.
What you don't need another rescue plan. You need wisdom that keeps you from falling in the first place.
Yes.
And we know that you've received that tonight. So apply it. So until next time, make choices that will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless you.